where the fuck do I start? Where do I start with this episode? Where do I start with how this episode fucked up? Let's just get on with the video. What is up, everyone? It is me, Dan, here, and today I'm here with my review of the Arrow mid-season finale. Oh my god, I hated this episode. I hated this episode so much. This is easily the worst episode of Arrow Season 6. It was terrible. Really, really bad. I really did not like this episode. From the first 10 minutes alone, I just sat there thinking, This is going to be the worst episode of the season, isn't it? Yep, it is. It is. Honestly, there are so few redeeming qualities of this episode. This is, for me, and I'm going to say it, this is the worst episode we have had of Arrow since Season 4. It is worse than the 3 episodes of Season 5 that I didn't like, which were Episode 10, Episode 13, and Episode 20. This episode is worse than all of them. And I'm going to get into the negatives first, because I've written them down here on my phone, because I was literally going through the episode, taking notes, and I was like, I don't want to have to go ahead and write shit for this review, but I had to. I just simply wrote it as I was going along, because I hated this episode so much. I don't want to do a scripted video for it, because I hated it. So let's just get into the notes I've written down here for why this episode sucked balls. Alright, first off, and bear in mind, these are notes as I've made them on the phone as I was watching the episode, so more might come to my head afterwards, and I don't know how long this video is going to be. However long. I've got some here. First off, recycle plot elements. I noted 3 that were literally copy and paste almost from previous Arrow episodes from other seasons. I mean, what I wrote down here, someone betrays the team. We had that in last year's mid-season finale. That worked, because we hadn't seen it before, but that originality is fucking gone, because they decided to repeat the same storyline again. Why? Why did the Arrow writers think that was a good idea to just repeat the same storyline? We had it the same point last year. What is the point of repeating it? It was just stupid. The whole mystery of, oh, who's exposed Oliver? Who's exposed him? No one cares, okay? We have seen this before, and the worst part was, it was so predictable. I predicted from the very get-go that it would be Renee, and I even had it spoiled to me that it would be Renee. And at the end of the day, I wasn't surprised, because it turned out to be Renee. And why? Because they used his daughter as a plot device, just so they could make her be relevant, you know? They're like, oh, we have evidence that you're a wild dog, we're going to threaten your daughter. That's the only purpose his daughter has in this episode, is to be a plot device. And that was just stupid. That was a stupid way to reintroduce her daughter, rather than give it an actual story. It's just like, no, let's just use her as bait. Like, that was stupid. And then I wrote down here as well, Ollie's identity as the Green Arrow is under threat. Once again, we have seen this in Season 1. We saw it in Season 3. We've already seen it this season. This plotline is boring. Either A, expose Oliver as the Green Arrow, or B, just stop doing this plotline, because I am sick of it being constantly brought up. It's so boring. We already know the outcome. We already know the basis of it. It's getting so boring now. It's dragging down the show. I am tired of watching the same plotline be recycled over and over and over again, and having no proper resolution, because it constantly keeps on getting brought up. It's pathetic. And then what have I wrote down here as well? Oh yeah, end of the episode. All of Team Arrow splits up. They're all split up. The newbies go their separate ways. Dinah and Renee, they leave. Dinah goes to work with a vigilante for some fucked up reason. I don't know why. Like, why the fuck does she work with someone who, earlier on in the episode, she labels as a stranger? Like, that just seemed so weird and out of character. There was basically no writing for her whatsoever to properly explain that, in my opinion. And then Renee goes back to his daughter once again, because, you know, she's a plot device. And then Curtis leaves because he's annoyed at the fact that Team Arrow lovers have been spying on him and all the other members throughout the entirety of this episode, which I have to agree with, because original Team Arrow, you know, Oliver, Diggle, and Felicity, they were dicks to new Team Arrow. I hated their characters in this episode. They came across as such assholes. I actually sympathised with new Team Arrow more than old Team Arrow. I thought the right for Felicity, Diggle, and Oliver was really not that good this episode, because I really was against them. And I know the writers were trying to make it 50-50 so you understood both sides, but I just didn't agree with what they were doing. I thought it was completely wrong, in my opinion. Let's see what else I got written down here. The action scenes. The action scenes felt so rushed for this episode. They didn't really feel that memorable. I mean, this is a mid-season finale. You're supposed to be having stuff in here that's gonna, you know, make me say, oh shit, I need to really come back, you know, January next year to watch. I felt no enthusiasm during these fight scenes. I mean, last year's mid-season finale was so good because you had that amazing fight scene on the flashback to season 1 on the escalator or travelator, whatever it's fucking called, and that was amazing. That was a great fight sequence, and it was so well done, funny enough, by the same guy who directed Overdrive, which is a film that I hate, but it was so good, and that was such a memorable fight. And even the fight between Oliver and Prometheus in that mid-season finale was really good. There was none of that this episode. There was absolutely none of it. I felt no sense of memorability in the fights. They were over far too quickly. There was barely any of them. I could only really label 2, in my opinion. And one of them wasn't even a fight. It was just a really poorly executed heist mission that felt so rushed. And why did this feel rushed? Because the first 10 minutes of this episode, or 11 or 12, somewhere around there, were literally dedicated to the Olisty wedding reception. And I kid you not, that was some of the worst moments on Arrow I have ever seen on the show. It was awful, really bad. It was such filler because it had nothing to do with the rest of the episode. The only reason that scene was extended was for the Olicity fans, and because of that, they sacrificed so much plot lines that could have been in this episode. I would be interested to see what the original draft of this episode was and the footage that got cut, because I swear there must have been a lot more, because this scene of the wedding reception between Oliver and Felicity dragged out way too long. All of the slow motion, all the talking about, oh, you're meant to be together. I didn't come to this show to watch fucking Dawson's Creek. I came here to watch a fucking superhero show, not a soap opera. It's why? Why are we getting this? This is literally what season 4 was derailing into, and we're getting it again with season 6. It's stupid. It's really pathetic. We had Donna Smoke back. Thank God she was only in the first 10 minutes, because if she was in there any longer, I swear I would have probably shot myself, because she's awful. She has not improved at all since season 4. Like, she's just terrible. The calculator, Felicity's dad, barely said a word in the whole episode. I honestly was sitting there thinking, what was the point of bringing him back? He barely said anything in the episode at all. So that felt pointless to me as well. What else have I put in here? You had too much melodrama. I felt that as well. There's way too much melodrama and just character drama. Not enough of an actual story that engaged me, in my opinion. Most of the conversation just came off, as I said, way too melodramatic. And just way too, they didn't really feel realistic. And like I said, that was probably mainly because of the fact of what the original Team Arrow were doing, spying on the new Team Arrow. I felt that was really poorly executed. There wasn't that 50-50 side of it where you understood why they were doing it, but at the same time you're like, well, that's kind of wrong. I just didn't feel like whatsoever. The writing wasn't that good, and like I said, I attribute that to the fact that the first 10 minutes of this episode felt like such filler that they essentially had to try and squash everything else together into the last 30 minutes or so of the episode, which just wasn't enough in my opinion at all. And then last on here I got Caden James as he's just a boring villain. Like, why did they decide to make him the main villain? Because at the end of the episode, he essentially recruits all of the other villains that we've met throughout this season so far. Well, most of them at least. So we've got him as the leader. We've got Black Siren, Boots, whatever he's called. Vigilante, which I didn't understand because Vigilante is meant to be about justice, right? So why the fuck is he joining Caden James? Like, that made no sense to me. You got Anatoly, and you got Richard Dragon, or Ricardo Diaz, or the Dragon. I was so pissed that he was only in, like, 10 seconds of this episode. Like, he's by far the most interesting villain alongside Black Siren. And just, like, when I heard he was in this episode, I was really excited. And then when he's in it for 10 seconds, it's like, why? What's the point? What is the actual point? But back to Caden James. I find him such a boring villain. Honestly, I really didn't like Ra's al Ghul in Season 3 of Arrow because I found him such a boring presence. But Caden James is even more boring. Like, the problem I have with him is the fact that because he's a villain who isn't necessarily a great fighter, like you think about all the other seasons of Arrow, the people who Oliver Queen has come up against as the main villain, they've all been good fighters. They're all relatively good at hand-to-hand combat. Caden James is not that kind of a person. But the problem is that with someone like Caden James, his threat is very much not physical. And so as a result, it's harder as an audience to be able to go ahead and, connect to that or feel any sense of threat from it. But because they have written him so poorly and such a boring character, that it doesn't come across at all. I feel no threat when I see Caden James on screen. When I see Richard Dragon or Black Siren, I see threat there because it's physical in terms of their fighting ability or the connections that they have to the team. So for me, I just don't find him very threatening. I mean, I love Michael Emerson, and he's a great actor, and he was really good on Lost, which is where I knew of him beforehand. But his character is so boring, and to me, he literally just like he's playing the same character as he played in Person of Interest. Like, there just doesn't seem to be any difference, in my opinion. And just like, yeah, making him the whole villain, just for me was stupid. I didn't really understand it whatsoever. The only really one positive that I could say with this episode, the one aspect of this episode that I enjoyed, really for me, was the Black Siren and Quentin Lance stuff. That for me was the only parts of the episode where I genuinely sat there and didn't feel like I wanted to stop watching. Because there were numerous times in this episode where I was watching it and I had to pause it and go away because I was so bored, or I was just sitting there going, oh, why are they doing this? So many times throughout this episode. But the scenes with Black Siren and Quentin Lance were the only few times where I genuinely didn't feel like doing that. There was one scene in particular, I think it's within about 25 minutes into the episode, where Lance and Black Siren talk about Earth 2 Lance. And that was a fantastic scene. The writing there was great. The music was fantastic. The acting from Paul Blackthorne and Katie Cassidy was amazing. And it actually kind of made me tear up a little bit because it was so emotional and so well done. That was the kind of stuff I wanted to see in this episode. That kind of writing. But it just wasn't there. That felt like the only scene where I genuinely felt like the writing was perfect, where the writers actually got what they were trying to get. But the rest of this episode wasn't like that. It was very disappointing. And there just wasn't enough moments like that. Like I said, there was quite a few of them with Quentin and Black Siren. And the fact that Black Siren let Quentin go at the end of the episode, I feel it was actually quite a good move by the writers. You know, it's slowly hinting towards that redemption. But once again, I feel like Black Siren, even though she had quite a few good moments in this episode that I really liked, and I thought the writing for her was very good, she still feels very underused. Like, the fact that Katie Cassidy is a series regular, but not only has she only appeared in 4 episodes so far this season, but she's really not been the focus on many of them. I just feel like they really are misusing her, so they better step up their game in the second half of the season. I still want to see a flashback episode to her on Earth 2, and how she became Black Siren. I still want to see that, but knowing the fucking Arrow writers and Mark Guggenheim, we probably won't get that because it's that stupid. And I guess another positive you could throw in there was Thea. I thought she was good in this episode. It definitely showed how much I actually missed her as a character. I thought she was very good this episode. She wasn't in it a whole lot, and she didn't really have much of a purpose in it, but I just enjoyed seeing her on screen. And it's just nice to have Willa Holland back because I just really like her and the character of Thea in general. So, to summarise, this is, like I said, this is easily the worst episode of Arrow this season. It's easily the worst episode of the show since Season 4. I really did not enjoy it. It's one of those episodes that if I ever rewatch Season 6, I won't watch this episode. I found it so boring, so lackluster, and the fact that this was a mid-season finale, and I came out of it so depressed, like, it just really has put a dampener on my anticipation for Season 6. I mean, I think about all the other CW DC shows. You know, Supergirl had a great mid-season finale in my opinion. The Flash had a great mid-season finale. And so did Legends to some extent, even if the first half of that episode wasn't that great. Arrow's was just really uninspiring, really poor, and especially compared to last year's mid-season finale. Like, that was a great mid-season finale. This one's just so bad in comparison. I would say this mid-season finale is actually worse than Season 4's, because at least Season 4 had some good moments. And you had that end scene with Felicity getting shot, so that actually interested me. And, you know, just seeing Malcolm Merlyn in the Green Arrow costume, that made me smile. But there was none of that this episode. It was just really, really bad. Like I said, the only scenes I enjoyed were the ones with Lance and Black Siren, and the scenes with Thea. Other than that, I really didn't like this episode. And you're probably going to be shocked by the score I get. I'm going to give it a score of a 3 out of 10. I really didn't enjoy it. I really think this is one of the worst episodes of Arrow that I've seen in recent memory. I really didn't enjoy it, and I'm worried for Season 6. I'm really worried what direction they're actually going to take this show in, but fingers crossed they will learn from this episode, because I'm sick of giving the show chances. I gave it a chance in Season 4 to improve. Failed. Season 5 was better. Now it just feels like it's degrading back to Season 4 quality, so I just hope somewhere they improve, they realise how much they're messing up, and they actually improve this show for once. Just do it, please. All I ask is for a good show. It's not really too hard to ask for. So that is it for my review of Arrow Season 6, Episode 9, aka the mid-season finale, entitled Irreconcilable Differences. Of course, you'll probably notice I doing a face cam this episode. I just felt like I had to because I was that pissed off with this episode. And just testing different stuff out, you know, for the end of the year. So with that all being said, let me know your thoughts of this episode in the comment section down below. Did you hate it as much as I did? Because I'm pretty sure you did, because the reception of this episode online has not been very good. So with that being said, I'd like to thank you all very much for watching the video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, give the video a like, and I will see you all next time.